As the cliche goes, April showers bring May flowers. But usually what comes after is the heat and dryness of summer. Hello again, Essay here. And before the hot weather of the holiday shows up, you should indulge in my new short story, The White Cat, a free exclusive on Substack. The links are down below in description. Join Margot Thompson, a beautiful stage actress and recent widow who finds salvation in the form of a white cat during a night of terror. While checking out my oddball thriller, remember that my Glitch series is still available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The links are down below in the description. While you'll find my peculiar story about a white pussy entertaining, that doesn't mean I'm out of ideas. I still have more stories coming down the pike, so as long as I don't run into any mishaps, you'll see those stories as well. Now let's get back to the video.
I was at the end of my count when it happened. I'd come up with exactly the same numbers as Larry, 256 to 257. Tracy had won the election by a single vote. I was about to announce my tally when the sight of Tracy at that moment affected me in a way I can't fully explain. Part of it was that she was spying, but mostly it was her face. Who knew how high she would climb in life? How many people would suffer because of her? I had to stop her. Now.
Hello again, Essay here. Time is not like static. You have trends, things ebb and flow. I mean, anyone from my era probably remembers bell bottoms and platform shoes. And that was a trend, along with disco. And yet, by the end of the decade, all that stuff became passé. Yeah. That also applies to political theory. Something could be in vogue once one generation, be out of the limelight in another. I mean, for example, in the 19th century, you had the Gilded Age, where you had a bunch of robber barons and monopolists, basically ruling on the roost. And yet, underneath them, you had people who were reformers, populists, basically nibbling at the legs of the chair to topple them over. And then, of course, people probably remember the New Deal under FDR, and how it eventually segued into radical leftism, and eventually the counterculture movement. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the New Right. The New Right came under, rose to prominence under Reagan and Bush. But then by the year 2000, it was basically a spent force. Well, what a difference a decade makes. Because when Barack Obama became president, that was basically the forefront of what we now call identity politics, the new left. Well, apparently the new left segued into identity politics. I already mentioned that. And of course, wokeism. Oh yeah. And of course, I know some of you say, "Oh, please don't give us a lecture about wokeism again." No, give me a chance. Well, anyway, they recently had elections in the European Parliament. Even though from way the rules are written, for it's not really much of a real parliament. No, it's almost like I'm trying to find it nicely. Almost like an old school men's club, except it's not restricted to just boys. No, apparently, in order to get into this club, you have to be voted in, and wait for it. The people who run the European Parliament, well, they are chosen by the members of the club. Yeah, the citizens don't choose the members, the leadership. And they don't even call themselves they don't even call themselves like a proper term, like a prime minister or a premier or even a damn chancellor. No, they call them the senior executive, like they're running some corporation. I know it sounds kind of weird, but that's where they do things in the EU. Well, anyway, they recently had an election, and after well over a decade of leftists ruling the roost there's been a sea change. And apparently, the people who were most surprised by it were the members of the EU themselves. And when I mean the members, I mean the actual European Parliament, the big wigs there. Now I'm going to show you a snippet of a video by that English dude, Paul Joseph Watson. And believe me, he gets into the nuts and bolts about exactly what happened. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
Lefty losers got trounced in elections all over Europe, and their salty tears were flowing like the Danube River. Bad news for Macron and his cronies. I'm getting flashbacks.
J'ai décidé de vous redonner le choix de l'économie. Je dissous donc la souveraineté.
In fact, Marine Le Pen got more than double Macron's vote. The French president got pummeled so bad he was forced to call parliamentary elections for the end of the month.
The rise of nationalists and demagogues is a danger for our nation, but also for Europe, for France's position in Europe and in the world.
The brown on the map is where people voted for Le Pen. She won every single department besides Paris. She might even now go on to have the largest delegation in the European Parliament, ahead of Germany's CDU. Shit libs across the continent be like. I literally moved country to avoid the right wing. Yeah, my heart goes out to you, love.
Hi guys, Ricky G here, wellness and beauty influencer. As a celebrity, I know all about stuff, like science and politics. So trust me when I tell you who you should vote for. If you don't vote the right way, that's like a hate crime. It makes me sad and angry, and I'll leave the country. And you don't want that.
If you're celebrating the rise of the far right in Europe, I'd recommend acquainting yourself with something called history.
Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
Yeah, mate, I'm a historian. This is just like Germany in the 1930s. History's repeating itself. I'm a very smart historian. When I said we were returning to everything 2016, I wasn't joking. In Belgium, Prime Minister Alexander De Croo literally started blubbering after finding out his party got just 5.8% of the vote. He then promptly resigned. Bye. While the populist Vlaams Belang Party and the new Finnish alliance gained massive ground. At a certain point, I'm afraid we're just going to have to admit it. A surprisingly large proportion of Europeans are actually quite racist. Yeah, mate, just keep calling them racist. I'm sure that'll work. In In Germany, the political establishment lowered the voting age to 16, thinking it would obliterate the right-wing vote. Well, that didn't go to plan, did it? The AfD came equal first place with the CDU in the youth vote of people aged under 24. Overall performing beyond their expectations, coming second and registering their best ever result. Zoomers rise up.
Young voters turning right and leaving the Green Party.
Oh no, the Greens are losing.
European Greens lost nearly all the gains they made in the last elections just 5 years ago.
Oh no! Anyway,
Who's going to make all our energy bills completely unaffordable? Banners from driving petrol cars and slap a huge tax on our meat consumption now?
Devastating.
Austria, the Freedom Party scored its first ever election victory, gaining nearly 26% of the vote. This off the back of a campaign firmly rejecting net zero insanity, mass migration and alphabet people indoctrination. The establishment was shaken to the core, bemoaning once again that democracy was under dire threat because people democratically voted for candidates they don't like. Oh yes, the biggest threat to democracy. Checks notes. Elections.
The rise of nationalists and demagogues is a danger for our nation.
What's happening in the European elections should terrify us all. The morally supreme last guardians of democracy, terrified by a democratic vote. No! When around a third of the continent is voting for parties labelled far right, and 70% of Europeans think their country takes in too many immigrants, at what point do they acknowledge they're not far right? They're just right. It's not 2014 anymore, is it? The EU is basically now more right-wing than the UK. That's got Ramona's hopping mad. British libtards. We can escape fascists like Rishi Sunak by rejoining the EU. The EU. Maybe we should rejoin after all. Oh yeah, and apparently anyone who wants France to remain French, Sweden to remain Swedish, and Germany to remain German, anyone who doesn't want their cities and suburbs filled with tower blocks full of infinity Bamalians is basically an extremist incel. We were all warned about the rise of the far right and incels! The attack on woke feeds into this dangerous rhetoric. The surge in support for the far right across Europe is a warning for us all. Right, because all those farmers in their 50s and 60s, having their farms shut down and their livelihoods destroyed, taxed into oblivion by climate change bureaucracy. Turns out they're all just incels stewing with resentment in their mum's basements. In yesterday's European elections, I suffered a crushing personal defeat, along with my comrades in Greece and Germany. Oh no, the Greek communists suffered a crushing personal defeat. This is terrible news. Meanwhile, in the UK, polls suggest Farage's Reform Party could end up getting a higher vote share than the Tories. It really is time for Conservative candidates to stand down and step aside for the real opposition to Labour.
Look, if Rishi does resign, I would have thought that they would probably end up with a score rather like they did in the European elections in May 2019, hovering around about 8%. 0 seats, 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 0 seats.
the whole game is changing. This old tired mantra that a vote for this party or that party helps the other side. The real question here is who is going to provide a voice of opposition in Parliament and in the country to a Starmer government. The Conservatives had their chance, they've blown it.
White men, elections, reform. Alright, who's got the clip?
I just got this feeling, man, that this summer is, it's about to be a white boy summer.
Okay, you saw that. Now, of course, some of you are saying, who cares what happens in EU? It had nothing to do with us. You sure about that? Because what happened there was the equivalent of a political tsunami. I mean, no one saw that thing coming at all. I mean, it's almost like what happened in that incident down there in Indonesia. It happened about 20 years ago, in which a real tsunami, hit those people down there. And according to that history, nobody saw it coming. Indeed, I remember when in the aftermath they said the few witnesses that survived said that yeah, everything was all as pretty as a picnic, and then everyone noticed the water receded, and then this massive tidal wave came and just practically washed everyone away. Yeah, well, that's what just happened in the European elections. In other words, nobody saw what happened coming, and then you say why? I don't know. I guess these people, if you watch South Park, are probably getting high off of their own farts. Because, you know, people who've been paying attention could see what was coming. That the people in Europe had gotten fed up with the leftist mantra, the leftist narrative. That if you don't do as we say, oh, you're a neo-Nazi, you're a bigot, you're a fascist, and on and on and on. And people in Europe got fed up with that. I mean, like the farmers' protest, most of the people weren't even political. They were just worried about how they're going to feed their families and if their damn farms are going to be around in a few months or a year from now. And then you have the people in these cities when it comes to the migrant crisis. And yeah, you think the migrant crisis in the United States is bad? Oh boy, you have no idea how bad it is in Europe. I mean, ever heard the phrase no-go areas? Yeah. Well, we don't have that quite yet in the United States, but in Europe, they got a lot of those, particularly in places like Sweden and Germany, places where the police can't go because there's so many of these damn people, mostly from the Middle East and Africa, that it's dangerous to go there. And wait for it, there was an incident happened in Germany, I think just last month, where let's not pretend, they were right-wing politicians trying to have a stump speech, and some crazy clown from Afghanistan tried to kill the guy. Jumped up with a knife and tried to stab the guy. And then what happens? The police just happened to be there, and who they grab? Not the clown with the knife. They grab one of the fools who was trying to pull the knife-wielding attacker off of the damn politician. And then when the police realized the mistake they made, only when the crazy Afghan stabbed one of the cops in the neck. And the cop later died. And wait for it, you ready? When they mentioned this incident in the local city council, I can't remember what city it was. I can't remember if it was Hamburg or Cologne, but it was one of those towns. The members of the Green Party who were there in the city council, they snickered when they mentioned the cop dying after being stabbed. They thought it was funny. And worst thing about it was this whole incident was filmed and people saw that. Now, you have scumbags everywhere, okay? It's a given. But I think if you had a politician in New York, LA, Chicago, who and then sit there and snicker after a cop got murdered by some scumbag, that guy would be run out of town on his ear. No joke. And I'm pretty certain that was probably was basically the cattle prod in people's butts that basically got them off their butts and decided to vote in these European elections, because I guess they were sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it didn't just happen in Germany, it happened across the board. In France, the Netherlands, the damn Scandinavian country, Norway, Finland. I mean, these damn radical leftists who have been ruling the roost since the Obama era, they were completely, no, as a Popeye used to say, well, blow me down. Yeah, they totally didn't see it coming. And then you say, why? I don't know. I guess they probably have been getting high off of their own farts and wasn't paying attention to the trends. That their policies of open borders, of no meat, you know, trying to get rid of the farms in Europe so people would have to force to eat the bugs. And of course, you know, and the net so-called net zero policies, you know, trying to get rid of automobiles and anything that as much as expels any kind of carbon monoxide gas. I mean, and these so-called what is it, 15-minute cities, and you say, what the hell is that? Well, it's some kind of new initiative they're trying to try out in England, where supposedly they're trying to basically take away people's mobility. In other words, no cars, no buses, no bicycles, no nothing. In other words, if you're in a community, you have to stay in that community. You can't leave. And you say, what kind of knucklehead nonsense is that? Yeah, precisely. And then you say, why are they trying to institute something like 15-minute cities? Well, they claim it's to protect the climate. In other words, you take away people's mobility and keep them in one location. They won't be able to use automobiles or fossil fuels and whatnot. But the real excuse, according to really smart people, is all about control. In other words, you keep people all in one spot and they can't move from that spot, whether it be a small town or even a major population center. You can control them a lot easier. That's it. Well, now these radical leftists are finding out that, hey, guess what? Your radical leftist policies aren't popular. And by extension, you're not popular. And that's why across the board they lost all these elections. And of course, you say, what does that do with them? America? Well, look what's been happening here. Now, we don't have any stupid 15-minute cities, but we have a damn the climate catastrophe crowds here forcing their Green New Deal down our throats. You have the damn stupid fools letting in all these migrants, just totally gobbling up all the social services and everything, and clogging the streets with their millions upon millions. And of course, finally, you have these knuckleheads who are in their stupid woke policies. You know, whether it be the stupid pride flags and the stupid pronouns in the bios, and oh my God, the stupid woke entertainment. You know, like the stupid alkalate and garbage like that. I mean, people are fed up with this shit, all of it. And the funny thing is, this has happened before, because back when I was a much younger person, I remember seeing the rise of Margaret Thatcher after multiple years of failing British governments. Now, the governments weren't what you would call woke, but they certainly were very liberal. And believe me, you can go back and look at the history books, because it was pretty bad in Britain during the 1970s. I mean, their economy was totally in the toilet. Crime was rampant. And people just, you know, it was like what's a cliche? People had a serious case of the blahs. In other words, there was nothing to look forward to. In other words, people didn't have reason to get up out of bed in the morning. That's how bad it was. And then, even though I didn't think much of Margaret Thatcher at the time, she actually did, you know, put a spark plug in people's ass and woke those English up and made them proud to be British once again. And, wait for it, not even 2 years later, Ronald Reagan showed up and became president of the United States. And indeed, I remember reading some op-ed pages in the Los Angeles Times at that time, and they said that Margaret Thatcher was the John the Baptist to Ronald Reagan's Jesus. And wait for it, you had a whole shift to right politics all across Western Europe, because because Helmut Kohl in Germany, that was another example. In fact, I remember they said in that article at the time that Francois Mitterrand, who was the president of France, he was the odd man out because he was a socialist. And yet all the other political leaders in Western Europe and the United States were all right-wing, or I should say, right of center. Now, does that mean that what's happening now in the EU will be a precursor to a Trump victory here in the United States? It's feasible. Now, of course, something can go wrong. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you. Trump doesn't automatically have it in the bag. No, something can go wrong. I mean, because look what happened back in '68. Everyone thought that Bobby Kennedy was going to be president of the United States. And then what happened? He gets himself shot down there at the Ambassador Hotel. And then who ends up becoming president? Yeah, Richard Milhous. Nobody saw that coming. Now, of course, I'm not expecting Trump to get shot like Bobby Kennedy did, but hey, weird things can happen. I mean, good grief, Trump could get hit in the head with a golf ball down there at Mar-a-Lago, and that could be it for him. Yeah, that could happen. I'm not hoping it will, but hey, strange things can happen. But yeah, what happened in Europe is definitely could be a precursor to the United States. Now, with that said, if Trump gets in there, if we'll be able to turn things around, you can only hope, because it'll be a really sad thing to see if Trump gets in there and then the damn Titanic still sinks. Yeah, that would be almost a laughable moment. But then again, of course, Tim Pool recently in his IRL show, he spoke about how the Democrats and these radical leftists in the DNC, how they are aware that they're likely going to lose the election, and therefore they're trying to cause as much chaos and havoc inside the United States as possible before the election. And then I remember one of the people in his panel said that it reminded him of what happened in the waning days of World War II. How the Germans kind of knew that they were losing the war, 1944-45, and therefore they accelerated what they were doing, like the death camps. And I remember reading those stories. Yeah. The death camps were running day and night all the way up to the Battle of Berlin. Now, you say, why would people do something like that? Well, because those damn goose-stepping fools back in the 1940s were a bunch of radicals. They didn't give a shit about their own people. They just cared about their ideology. And now jump forward to the present day, here in this country. These radicals inside the DNC, you think they care about the American people, American society? No, they just care about their ideology. And they are aware. I think some of them are pretty clever enough to aware that their policies are not popular, and by extension, they are not popular. And they probably figure, if nothing goes wrong, that Trump will likely be the next president of the United States. And therefore, they're trying to accelerate what they're doing. They're trying to force through their damn carbon mandates. Trying to take away people's cars and stuff. They're trying to accelerate the anti-meat initiatives, just like in Europe. They're trying to accelerate more people coming across the border illegally. And indeed, Tim, he said these people are basically the fire. They're trying to burn it all down. And you know what? Yeah, that's a kind of form of megalomaniacy. Because I've seen that in plenty of films where the damn, the villain, like the Bond villain, basically says, if I can't have it, nobody can. And they basically, destroy the machine. Smash it completely. So what does that mean for people here in this country? I think that after what happened in Europe, I think the radicals here in this country are probably going to just try to accelerate things as much as possible. just like those damn Germans did in the waning days of World War II. They kind of, I think these people are kind of half aware that they are likely going to lose in the end, and therefore they're going to try to burn it all down. Cause as much damage as possible. So what can we do about it? Well, short of grabbing these people and hog tying them and stick them in the corner until the election, I don't rightly know. But I guess we just have to keep our eyes and ears open and make sure that, as best we can, these radicals don't cause too much damage to our society. Because ever heard the phrase "a death of 1,000 cuts"? Yeah, it's an old I think it's an old Hindu term. Maybe at least Middle Eastern, but somewhere in that general neighborhood. And it basically means what it means. It means that if you give someone enough cuts, it'll eventually end them. Well, that's all I have to say about what happened in the European Parliament. And that's my opinion.